Today I'll be discussing the Wendigo, primarily in Algonquin-speaking regions, as folklore and details can vary greatly across North American indigenous tribes. First and foremost, what does one look like? The Wendigo has over 20 ways to spell and pronounce, and lots of variation in descriptions, but there are some details most cultures have in common. They are human-like supernatural spirits that eat people who are never full and constantly search for humans to eat. Some legends say that this is because it grows in mass equivalent to its previous meal each time it eats, so its stomach is never satisfied. It is normally appears in and is associated with the winter and in times of extreme famine. Many people believe that they are created from humans resorting to cannibalism during severe famine or from contact with another Wendigo. They generally represent greed, gluttony, and selfishness, and can harm selfishness that can harm the community. It is used often to demonize the act of succumbing to selfish acts and desires that are detrimental to other people around them. Accusations of potential Wendigos were treated basically like the Salem witch trials. In Anishinaabe beliefs, the people who became the Wendigo are frozen inside the beast, roughly where the heart is, and the only way to kill a Wendigo is to kill the human inside. There are very few stories that have the Wendigo defeated and have the person inside come out alive. It is often said to be made of or under a coat of ice, with glowing eyes, sharp teeth, bad odor, and is said to have a supernatural strength, speed, and also exceptional senses of smell and sight. Beliefs in the Wendigo originate in Algonquin-speaking tribes such as the Ojibwe, Cree, and Innu. Some cultures describe them to be massive giants. Other places use the term Wendigo to describe a concept, or to use as a metaphor that is driven by greed, excessive consumption, or the destruction of the community. One example that they described to be a Wendigo is the colonialism of the Americas. Specifically, the concepts like manifest destiny and Western expansion were seen as acts of consuming as much as one could without the consideration of others, or in this case, the First Nations people. The Wendigo was also used as a way to encourage working together as a group. To reinforce the taboo, Ojibwe people would sometimes do a satirical dance known as the Wendigo Kan Jimowin, involving wearing masks and dancing backwards around the drum. Some other cultures include this tradition in the Sun Dance, an annual ceremony used to promote togetherness and healing. When the British arrived in Canada, many were superstitious, and so the period of colonization of Canada was actually before the Salem witch trials, and so the settlers had believed in many of the traditional dances and deities to be associated with the devil in the Christian respect. Colonialism and the Indian Act were very significant events that affected the First Nations people, and therefore their traditions like the story of the Wendigo, as well as the colonizers were predominantly Christian, the church-run government-sponsored residential schools aiming to convert First Nations children and assimilate them into Canadian society. Traditions included food, clothing, and stories like the Wendigo were removed from their lives. Children were beaten, tortured, starved, and more in these schools, and many would try and run away. However, now that the last residential school has been closed, First Nations are slowly spreading again and growing back. Perhaps it will never be as common as it was before, but the story of the Wendigo is still a popular myth, relatively. The Wendigo nowadays is actually being used in a lot of pop culture. Examples include Marvel Comics, Teen Wolf, and the video game Until Dawn. It is one of the more commonly known Native American myths due to its relatively large pop culture usage. Overall, the Wendigo is a very interesting mythological creature that has been used as a metaphor for a lot of concepts over time, and have been used to unite Native tribes to work together in fear of becoming overcome with greed and selfishness. The story of the Wendigo, along with the rest of the Native American traditions, had gone through a lot of oppression, and is now being told again among First Nations tribes, rebreathing life into their traditions. Thank you for listening to my talk about Wendigos. Here are my resources.